Welcome to the Career Coven, the podcast for serious careers with unserious chat. I am Beck, a coach, corporate citizen, and recovering perfectionist.
And I'm Annie, a workaholic, learning boundaries slowly. In each episode, we unpack career challenges and workplace wisdom through honest conversations, practical tools, and a healthy dose of real talk, so you can thrive on your own terms. Shall we get into it? Today's topic, Rebecca, is...
Quite a juicy one. It's on let them theory.
Yeah, topical as well. Well, depending on when this actually airs. But a lot of noise around this particular theory in the last few months, which
They spent a lot of money on their marketing budget. My God.
Yeah, they have. And the person who alerted me to this was you. Of course it was. Your pop culture guru. But then subsequently, we have heard about this on some of our favourite podcasts, like Shameless did an episode on it. Anyway.
I wish I'd listened to that before this. What an idiot.
Oh, that's a good one. That would be one of my recs. We'll put it in the show notes. But
okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different angle to us. It's a very different show.
Okay, great. Well, I learned about let them theory at my coaching course. Like, everyone was talking about it, and I was like, I don't know this thing, I'm so out of touch. And then it exploded after that. But we're obviously talking about the kind of theory brought together by Mel Robbins. It is a book. I'm pretty sure it's a podcast. It's lots of different things. I also don't think this is Mel Robbins' first bit of kind of pop psychology, is it?
Agreed. No. I have some thoughts. I don't know how quickly we want to get into Mel, but I do have some thoughts, because I think, what would she have been called in the past? Maybe a motivational speaker, And now she's I think calls herself a psychologist or something. Anyway, what is she? Is she she's a leadership motivator? I'm not sure.
Is that what we are? Are we leadership motivators? I don't think so. Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe we should also be pop psychologists as well. And put that in the bio. Before we get into it today, what have you been up to since we last recorded, Annie?
Working until I almost collapse, of course. And planning the weddings. I mean, there's so little of interest going on here. It's that's why I said in this particular episode, it's learning boundaries very, very slowly, to be honest with you. Because, it's work and wedding and then trying to sleep. I have to admit, I'm absolutely exhausted. But I'm not in bad form. What about you?
Excellent. We've just had a couple of weeks by the seaside, which has been really nice. We took a decision and had an offer accepted on a old house fixer-upper, our first family home. It is going to be great. It smells a lot like 40 years of the same family have lived there, which is its current state of affairs.
Nice.
Smells a lot like their cats. So, we're on the up. We're looking positive by the end of the year. I'm sure everyone will get to hear how that goes every week that we record as I slowly lose my sanity. But
please keep us updated on the renovation madness. I also really want you to know that cat is a hard smell to get out.
I don't actually even think the cat is the worst smell. There is clearly like generations of 14-year-old boy that have been in one room, and I literally cannot be in there for more than half a second without retching, which is a sort of leftover from my pregnancy. But I don't even know what that room looks like because I can't go in. So, this is what we're up against. I'm going to crack some windows open, but really excited for what it will be. So really looking forward to that, and just really looking forward to today's episode. So, Annie, for the uninitiated, in case anyone's been living on a rock, let them theory is about what? Releasing control? Is that what we're going to call it? Look, you and I are coming from really different angles on this podcast, so you're going to have to do the heavy lifting on why it's a good thing.
Okay. I think I can do that. Though I would say, when you first flagged it to me, I did hate it. So it's been a journey, and perhaps that is what's interesting. So I think my understanding of let them theory, which is very concise, is that it's a sort of mindset and approach to boundary setting that that encourages people to basically ignore what other people think of them and just, yeah, it kind of gives you permission and gives you the right to like not worry about what other people think of you, and focus less on how your actions impact other people. And yeah, it's like kind of maybe liberating, or I think that's the intention, because it's basically like, if people don't like you, let them not like you. Doesn't matter. Not your problem. Their problem. If people want to not invite you to a party, doesn't matter. Let them. It's not your problem. So I think it's coming from a place of kind of like real like power and autonomy. I don't know. That's what I think about it now that I've put this positive spin on it. What is your understanding of let them?
So I put this in a category of like pop science / psychology that is basically targeted people who stop in at a WH Smith's at the airport and they're like,
Okay.
I've got 8 days plus flying days to change my life, and this book's on 50% off and it's #1 in the charts. So I'm just going to buy it and transform my thinking. And it will take 200 pages when the concept could probably be described in 15. And like, it just to me feels like, I don't know. I went on holiday recently and there was a lot of people reading Jay Shetty. And this to me feels in a similar camp of like, I'm a sort of evolved and empowered thinker, and here's this silver bullet that I'm gonna teach you. And I just don't ever think there's a silver bullet in life. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. I think you ain't wrong there.
Okay.
But you're yeah, so you're like putting it into airport trash as a category.
Airport nonfiction.
Airport nonfiction.
I love airport fiction, to be clear.
Okay. Okay. Good distinction, I think, to make for the listeners. And you're saying it's like a category of self-help that is maybe a bit kind of basic. Is that fair?
Yeah, I just sort of feel like there are some things in the book. Actually, I did not read the book, but I did do my research on this. So for people who are going to at me after I've finished talking about research that's not Mel Robbins authored, I think there are some basic and core things in there which are like sort of really obviously true. I don't think you need to read a book about them, although it's nice to be reminded about them. But, you know, it's things like having a kind of internal locus of control. And by that, I mean, like, you know, I can only control what I control. What is that like? My nana has a fridge magnet with it on it.
Yeah.
You know, have the courage.
Control the controllables kind of thing. Yeah.
I forget I think it might be like an old prayer or something. This for me is like fridge magnet territory of,
okay.
of sort of like psychological platitude, I suppose is where I'm coming from. But, you know, there is a good point around it in that it's meant to be stripping out basically resenting people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. Like, I would love not to resent people, but like, is that realistic? Like, totally not. But, you know, I think there's also like things that you can learn about if you resent someone. I think there's like learning around a range of emotions. So yeah, I mean, choosing peace, yes, love a peaceful life, and like this sort of verges on a super watering down of like Buddhism, which as a philosophy I'm kind of more I'm into it. I like it, but you know, emotional detachment from what's going on, and I have given the advice previously, like care a little less to help you cope. So not that I want to sound like I'm supporting it, but I've just told you all the things that I'm into about it, but I've got quite a long list of things I'm not into about it. So why don't you just tell me why you're into it? Because you've been like in practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Using it, right?
And I think like that, as you were saying that, I was like, it's almost so high level that you can't disagree with its core. Is of like, you know, you can't control how people react to you. Like, that is just a fact. But I think that the reason I have started to really use it after you flagged it as something that you didn't like was, I think in the workplace, I care about everything. I care about every person in my team. I care about people in my wider team. Sometimes if I hear a problem, I just care about someone I've just met. And I think I've always told myself, like, that's what makes me like a good leader. But it's also very tiring, right? As we've discussed, because it's just so snappy. It's like, let them, I've like picked up as a phrase. I'm just like, let them, and that's been it's been quite good. I think it's been quite like empowering. But I think that is from someone who ultimately would index so heavily on the not letting them in the work.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, when you were saying that and you, like, snapped your fingers then, and I was like, is this just the more polite way of just saying fuck off? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it's fuck off, but the way I channel it is more like, oh, you fucking are. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you are. And I think probably if I was a little just more, if my style was a bit more direct and ruthless in my actual leadership, then I think this could be like really positive. Because if anything, I'd like, one of my development areas is that it's, I like peace. I like to make it peaceful. But in startups, that's usually bollocks. So I think that like it's just so easy for me to be like, it's sort of like, don't worry, just let them freak out. Don't spend time on it. And I have found myself thinking like, this is the best leader I can be.
Oh,
Is to just say, because you just can't make everyone happy all the time, and maybe that was something that I just wasn't that good at. Whereas now I'm like, fuck it, yeah, don't, just let them, just let them, because otherwise you don't get anything done.
I mean, I've worked in a lot of really high conflict roles, and I think I've just like become desensitized to it. So maybe that's why I don't find this like that light bulb for me. I don't know, when I was working on COVID and I used to sort of just get like, I became like the figurehead for like whatever stupid thing Boris Johnson was doing, and then like I'd have to like host an external stakeholder meeting with like 30 people on it who would yell at me for decisions that Boris had made, and I'd just be like, yeah.
And I just think, babe, every conversation we've ever had, it's so clear that you are so precise and direct and great as a leader, but you just don't need this. Do you know what I mean? You're definitely not unkind. Like, you're not like, there's no part of that is negative. It's just like, you're just so clear on like what needs to happen, and you're just like, well, you either just do it or just leave. Like, there's only like two things. It's either you just do your job or just don't do it. And if you don't do it, then what are you doing here? And I think I've learned a lot from like how kind I know you are, and how what I know all of your colleagues think of you, but also that just like complete clarity of like, no, we are just going to do this. We're going to get it done. Just move on. You don't like it, just move on, because this is what's happening.
We cop a lot of blowback, but I think that's also the difference, right? Is that you come from much more of a product background, which is generally speaking where you're trying to get everyone aligned around different areas and to have their goals met and so on. And I think that kind of role has to be inherently harmonious to function and get stakeholders on side. Whereas, like, is this the same as The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck? I haven't read it.
I haven't read that. And that to me, I don't know why. Because, like, I also, to be clear, I haven't read this book and I would never read it. I've just got the highlights and I've then applied them in a way that I find useful. Like, what is a whole book's worth? Like, how would you fill a book with this? Like, I think it's a 2 or 3 pager.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure if you put it into ChatGPT, it would be about 3 sentences. I tried to listen to a Mel Robbins podcast episode about it, and I just couldn't finish it. Like, DNF, I couldn't cope. I was like, I actually can't engage with this content. She was talking about an example of when she put it in practice when like her son had his like prom, and they hadn't pre-booked a like dinner reservation, and I was like, how many people are listening to this? Like, this is quite strange. But I suppose, what if I think about this more logically, you know, even if I were someone who thought that this would be useful, I still think there are sort of like logically and philosophically some challenges with it. An area of improvement, Mel Robbins, if she would like a performance improvement plan for Let Them, I do think there needs to be kind of space for repair and for healthy conflict. And such a simple take, I don't think really honours that. Like, if you, Annie, started to treat me badly, would I just be like, well, let her? Like,
Yeah, you're right.
I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
And like, I would see like our friendship as worth me kind of working a way through a conflict rather than just being like, I'm gonna let Annie be a dick
yeah,
and then try and not resent her. Like, that would be a weird thing to do to someone who's important to you. I can see value with it with someone who's not
not
important.
important.
Yeah. And maybe people just care more about those people than I do. That's fine. The other thing that I think it really flies in the face of my philosophy of like your ability to influence. That's what I have a real problem with this about. Like, I pride myself on being able to influence.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins is just basically like, nah, you can't influence people, so just don't try.
Yeah, I remember when you first brought this up, I really remember that being the thing that you were like, it's just like, you just give up on everything. And like, why would you believe that like nothing is worth kind of your action and your influence? Which obviously is also totally anti my personality as well.
Yeah, and maybe I've just sort of amplified it to mean more than it's intended, or maybe I'm misrepresenting it. But, you know, if I stopped engaging with things at work at the first sign of like a complex problem and being like, oh, they're not going to work with me on this and I can't control them, I just like wouldn't have a job. Like, you know, in a job when you have to do hard things, like the reason that you've been given the job is because it's hard, not because it's easy. And if it was easy, you wouldn't be around. So like, it's just not something that really gels with me. And I also don't think it allows space for trying to get to the best outcome, because if you let someone like block you on something critical, like your work isn't going to get done. In your example, you're just saying the work's going to get done either way. You can be a little bitch about it.
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you can be a little bitch all you want, but I'm going to win. And that's great when you have the power. But if you don't have the power, then you can't let them, because then that's just too passive, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I think we've spoken previously about like productive rage, and like if you feel angry about something, anger is telling you something else is going on, and you can use that as kind of a motivation to fix it. But yeah, passivity is like, I don't think really in either of our natures. So that's why I find it fascinating that like you're into it, and like, you know, I don't want to take that away from you at all.
I don't want, like, let's correct this. Okay, because like, I wouldn't say I'm into it, because I also tried to listen to probably the same Mel Robbins podcast and I actually couldn't get longer than like 3 minutes in. I think like maybe I'm not her biggest fan, because it's not even, I don't think this is, I mean, we're doing a podcast about it, so it's kind of a funny sentence, but I don't even think this is a podcast length of content. It's just like, don't worry about what people think of you as much. But I guess what she is saying is like, it's a very extreme version of that, isn't it? She's saying, if you lose all of your friends and no one ever invites you to an event again, it's totally fine if you just let them. And I think that stuff is like mental, because also that's a bit like, you've still got feelings. We're social beings.
It's like the friendship bit, I think, is actually maybe even worse than the workplace bit, because like, I mean, Mel Robbins' friends suck if she has like a whole chapter about like this or whatever. Like, this is a core pillar of her theory. Like, I think, you know, it's about what you do and don't tolerate from other people, and if they treat you poorly, decrease the amount of energy that you give them. And like, we've all had friends where we've either done that or they've done that to us. But like, I don't think your principle as a baseline of like a social relationship is just constantly lower your expectations, because the kind of corollary for that to me is like, I'm not deserving or worth it. And like, maybe that's my inner critic speaking or interpreting it. But I do, I don't think I have extremely high expectations of friends, but I definitely have expectations of friends. And if they weren't doing something for me that was working for me, I'd probably either tell them, or kind of, people naturally phase each other out or outgrow each other. But I don't believe in the philosophy that you should just be constantly lowering your expectations of your relationships if you've been like a bit wronged. Like, that's just, to me, saying these people aren't worthy of me, but also like, I'm not really worthy if I'm still willing to engage with them less frequently and they're less important to me, but they're still treating me like shit. Like, I think you either tolerate it or you don't, but it's just quite strange. The line about friendships that I just found so weird, like I can't even begin to understand it. It says, letting them be who they are so you can be who you are. Like, what does that mean?
Also, that to me, like, and maybe I just don't have super intense friendships, but that to me also implies that like you and your friends are like there every day, like at each other, and kind of like an intensity that is just like not something that appeals to me at all. Like, as much as I like love you and spending time with you, I don't spend enough time with you, I think, to restrict who you are. Like,
No, it's very codependent and like yin, and it's almost like a sort of year 5 interpretation of a friendship to me.
yeah,
When you're like, you're my best friend in the
yeah,
playground, and then a third person comes in and you're like no longer the best friend, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and
yeah.
whatever. Like, that's the kind of vibe that it gives. Like, it's a bit strange. And then the other bit that the bit that I just really disagreed with in the workplace one, just to go back to it, was when it was like, let your coworker take credit for your work. I was like,
That would really get you. That would really get you. Because you've got so many sassy ways of just making sure that that can't happen.
it's flattering when someone takes credit for your work, but my God, like, you don't get promoted if you
Yeah,
let
yeah.
other people take credit for your work, especially women. And I think that's really poor advice. She also suggested releasing expectations of fairness and validation in the workplace. And if over a long period of time that doesn't give you the recognition, then go get another job. No.
I think that's really naive, isn't it? Because it's just like there is no workplace that has ever just noticed everyone's output, efforts, emotional investment, like commitment to the company. There's just no workplace that ever would work like that at all. And so I think that's also just, it's naive, but it's just a bit stupid because it acts like everything will just be fine if you almost don't engage at all. And it's like, that just isn't true.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely problematic for anyone who's a minority. Or like, what about if you're not a minority advocating for others, or like the good fights? Like, there is no company that you can go to where that will be solved. It kind of feels a bit like Trump DEI attitude, like, which could be a whole separate horrible conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel, and I might not be correct about this, but obviously this has gone really viral. I think that is because it's very snappy. It's very easy to like latch onto it very quick. But do we think this advice, if we take it at the highest, simplest level of just like care a little bit less about what people think of you, do we think that that's more relevant for women than men?
Good question. Probably. Yeah, I mean, if I'm just trying to re-gear my brain into a Mel Robbins positive space, I do think that is helpful. I think, women are much more likely to be people pleasers.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any numbers to back that up, but I'd bet my savings on it.
Agreed.
And like, this feels like a really good one for the people pleasers. I would put myself in a people pleasing camp that I'm trying to like extricate myself from. But yeah, I mean, part of this is around you setting your boundaries, right? And setting boundaries always involves disappointing people, and you have to be comfortable with disappointing people. And if the phrase "let them," oh, Susan agrees. If the phrase "let them" helps you feel comfortable doing that, then great. That is a good thing. And if I take it from that angle, I think she's done a good. What do you think?
Well, she's speaking up at this section. I think she's agreeing that it probably does. I think women are more likely to be empaths, and I think empaths care much more about what everyone thinks about them and takes, if someone doesn't like something, takes it very hard and gets very, I think it's just we're the carers, right? So we've been programmed this way. And so I think it probably is in general more applicable and useful to women. But I think one of the questions that you'd put for discussion is interesting. Is like, how does let them theory reduce emotional labor? And I'm like, well, it could reduce it, right? It could reduce emotional labor, like the emotional work. Or I feel like trying to implement let them could be like the most agonizing amount of emotional labor ever, because you'd be like, I've got to not care. I feel terrible, but I've got to just let them. And I feel like if I just follow this and I just don't care. And it's like, that actually doesn't feel very realistic for me in a lot of cases. Like, I think most people where, you said, I've given the advice, like, care a little less, right? I got that as one of my last bits of feedback from my manager is care. Sometimes you care too much, care a little less. But I think it's unrealistic. Like, I'm not going to go from like Annie to let them, because I'd spend so much time being like, yeah, you shouldn't care about this. You shouldn't care about this. Don't care about this. Stop caring about this. That I would be really working myself up just trying to do that. So I'm not. I think in theory, if you could just go, oh, I'm just going to switch on let them, then yeah, fine. I think that probably would reduce emotional labor. But I think the practical reality is you don't just switch it on. You can maybe apply it to some things, but it's not easy.
Yeah, so I think, when I think about, I had a conversation with my therapist this morning about like trying to, if I feel like I'm compulsively thinking about something, trying to make my mind not think about it makes it harder. And I think, part of it is, I think for the care a little less argument, I think the answer is, yeah, like turn the volume down 5%,
Yeah.
rather than turn the volume to mute. Like, I do think there's actually such a good and healthy and positively motivating space about caring at work. As I always say, the kind of the light you shine, the shadow you cast, like, it can be your greatest strength and it can also be your greatest weakness if you care so much. But, it is a huge strength to be passionate and to be really motivated and to really care. And also, like, especially in your line of work, where there are like material health outcomes as a result of it, slightly less relevant for me when I'm like selling advertising.
I think whenever, if you like take your job seriously and you have anyone that you work with, whether you're like a direct manager leader or just like a leader as a person, right? I just think that part of the fun of it all is that you care. Like, oh my fucking God. When I have done the few jobs I have where I didn't care at all, like I worked at this shower gel company and it was so it was so rubbish.
Okay, I think we have given Mel quite a lot of feedback, airtime, things to think about. So let's too long didn't listen. What's the recap? I would say if you take it and apply it for what it means to you, a bit like a horoscope, that can be great. But if you get too intellectual about it, it probably doesn't stand up to logic. Is that a fair take, do you think?
I think that's a fair take. It's like at a high level, good, fine. Taken to the extreme that she wants you to take it to, completely bizarre.
Not for me. And also, just to summarize, Mel, I think you need new friends.
Yeah, great. Okay, so thanks for joining us today, as always. If something in today's episode has resonated with you, Spread the love, spread the magic, share it with a friend, post it on your socials, or leave a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. It makes a difference. That's how the Coven grows. Until next time. Peace.